Hi everyone. Today we are in conversation with Sarath Buddhi Raju. He works at Big Basket as a chief architect, and then he previously worked at Amazon as a principal engineer in multiple domains. Over to you, sir, and thank you very much for doing this.
Hey, thanks for having me over. My pleasure. So yeah, I think thanks for the intro. So I've been with Big Basket, joined them fairly recently, about I think 8 months ago. Prior to that, worked in a startup called Rupeek. It's in the fintech domain.
Okay.
Again, similar architect role over there. And I was in Amazon for close to 10 years, worked in multiple domains there, customer returns, payments, supply chain optimization technologies. So those were some of the areas I focused in Amazon. And prior to that, I worked in a bunch of other places. So I've seen like grown with along with the internet, right from the dial-up days. That's when I first started writing code.
Just I just had a niggle of asking you this. So when I return my any package on Amazon, does
to
your code handles all these things or?
I'm pretty sure code that I've written does some part of the
Okay,
process.
cool, cool, cool.
Unless something changed in the last, 3, 4 years.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for doing this. So today's agenda was that I wanted to record something from an architect's point of view, basically. Uh,
Mhm.
how DevOps matters in the SDLC process, and what are the things or the functional or non-function requirement where DevOps touches upon, basically, in the whole process. So
Mhm.
I only have few questions around that, and I'll be asking you. So the first question was that. Uh, when we are building some product, basically, so we gather the requirement, functional, non-functional, and all those things. So
Yeah.
when I was studying the whole area in DevOps, basically, so NFR
Mhm.
majorly falls into the DevOps responsibility.
Sure.
And being a chief architect, basically, you
Mhm.
would be dealing with the n number of products on day-to-day
Sure.
basis, because
Yeah.
the whole organization is your responsibility while I mean when it comes to the architecting. So how important is NFR in the product development cycle, and
Mhm.
which phase you think that DevOps
Mhm.
should be involved in the whole process? Do you think it should be from the starting, or in the middle, or in the end, whenever you feel? So over to you.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, this whole idea of like non-functional requirements versus functional requirements as two separate things. I think in today's day and age, this difference doesn't exist anymore, at least not in my mind,
Oh, okay.
and not the way like product and engineering leaders look at things right now. And it's partly because see, there was a time, right, like when my generation of people started using the internet.
Mhm.
It was okay for a page to take 30 seconds to load. It
Okay.
was okay for the website to go down once a day. Internet itself would go down every 30 days, like 30 minutes. So when it's in that kind of environment, you had to like there was one sort of focus. How do we get the functionality right?
Mhm.
And then if
Okay.
it is working, and then we think about, okay, what do we do to make it responsive? What do we do to increase the uptime? But
Okay.
like if you look at today's users, right, like your Gen Z users, now there'll be Gen Alpha users, they've grown up using products like Google Maps, Google Search, Apple iPhone, and they are used to a level of usability, a level of application correctness and resiliency,
Mhm.
a level of responsiveness that uh, whatever they use, whatever they see on those like applications like Insta and so on, they
Mhm.
expect that from every application.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
I'll like give you an example. Let's say you have two apps on which you order your food, right?
Mhm.
And let us say one app, every page takes 300 milliseconds longer. And
Okay.
that's the borderline of how much you can actually sense in terms of page latencies, right?
Exactly.
An increase of 300 milliseconds. But if that happens, without you realizing, you'll in your mind find a perception that this app is slightly sluggish, and
Mhm.
you'll one day stop using it or uninstall it after a few
Mhm.
users, right? Same thing, like if I get onto an e-commerce app and I find that I get a sorry page or something. This
Mhm.
happens frequently enough, you'll start using a different application. So there's no point having functional requirements without non-functional requirements if we use that
Exactly.
term.
Mhm.
So today, day zero, even before you build any functionality, the expectation is it is always up, it's responsive, your users' data security is taken care of,
Yes.
and all these aspects are like table stakes, right?
Yes.
So with that in mind, um, both product as well as engineering folks, right from day one in their design, take care of all of these things. So if like from product perspective, you need to be able to define in your product spec itself
Mhm.
uh, answers to questions like how many users, how many concurrent users. Um, in some, if you're building a multi-tenant like SaaS service, how many tenants are we talking about? Sometimes you need a upper bound, like okay, I will support up to 20,000 users and say 500 concurrent users.
Mhm.
And sometimes you need a range, like I want to build something that can support from anywhere between 100 to 300 SaaS tenants, right?
Yeah.
So that sort of clarity should come in the requirements, so that your team knows what to build for, right? And then that drives, first of all, your tech choices, your choices of data source, choices of compute, and so on. and
Mhm.
and then that further leads into implementation decisions and so on. So it's like it's a continuum, and every stage of the life cycle, from requirements to development to implementation to launch,
Yes.
these aspects have to be taken care of.
So, do you think there is a certain process which every team follows, or is it something? Because, as you know, I mean, just now you have given the example of the page being sluggish or 300 millisecond, but
Yeah,
somebody in the back room
yeah,
who is monitoring that dashboard, he knows that okay, the P99, P95, P90, or whatever P they are monitoring, basically
yeah,
that has increased. So
yeah.
that is kind availability or kind of the I mean, how faster the response time is actually somebody is monitoring. So, if it was the focal point since the starting, that would not have come basically. So,
Absolutely. So I think observability has to be baked in from your day zero.
mhm,
Like you need to measure your like latency quantiles, like the way you described. You
mhm,
need to know how often your users are saying 500s and timeouts, how
mhm,
often your website is going down if it is going down, or your app is crashing. So and today it's all these metrics are available, readily available
yeah,
for instrumentation in most tech stacks that you use. You just need to pipe them together using whatever your favorite observability tools are, and then start using and monitoring them. So I think that is sort of an expectation that, again, like we are getting into the DevOps world on how do
mhm,
I do this at scale without every team having to invent this. But like, can I build something common that if there's three teams building different parts of the application, all
mhm,
three do not have to independently figure out how do
yeah,
I measure non-functional requirements, how my application is performing against certain non-functional metrics. So I think that is sort of implicit now again.
mhm,
Other than that, see, like how does a DevOps team um, get involved in this?
mhm,
I think few things, right? Like ideally, in an unconstrained world, the
mhm,
DevOps engineer can go sit and be part of every product feature, design discussion,
yep,
look at every code review, and then see how does this have an implication
affect
on
the
infra
whole,
and ops, and
yeah,
do that. But the thing with platform teams and specialized teams with DevOps are they're always a constrained
yeah, yeah.
team, right? You'll have 200 engineers and 10 DevOps, or maybe 20 DevOps at
They
most.
are burdened with the operations work more basically.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and that's an interesting topic. We should talk about it. So,
yeah,
so like, given that the DevOps team bandwidth is so constrained,
mhm,
they cannot be going and being part of every decision, because like then they become the bottlenecks
mhm,
that are preventing projects from rolling out fast. And I've seen environments where this has been tried, where let's get a DevOps guy in every design review,
exactly.
but it's very hard to scale that once and scaling is not just in terms of growth in engineering team size, right? the
I,
same team, as the number of features increase, the
Mhm.
complexity of the system is increasing. Now,
Yes,
the
yes.
engineering team knows the complexity of their application. Now, the
Mhm.
DevOps engineer will not know every use case in detail.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly. Because there is a gap, sir, actually. Why I
Yeah.
have asked you this question is actually lately I have been reading a lot about system design, how it affects, and when I was reading at least 70 to 70, and I was having conversation with another DevOps leader, Sanjay Singh sir, and
Yeah.
he clearly mentioned that 75% of the whole process of SDLC is owned by DevOps, and
Hmm.
so many DevOps engineers, they ask me nowadays that whether it is good to know system design if we are working in DevOps, and I say it
Hmm.
is must to have because
Yeah, I don't think that's a
but
choice. So,
yes,
yeah, so I think to me, like every engineer is an engineer.
yes, exactly.
Like whether you're playing a DevOps function or
Mhm.
front end microservice development, back end microservice development, app development. I
Mhm.
think today's day and age, like to say that I will not understand even one
You won't
link
be
in
able
the
to grow. I think you won't be able to even, I mean, sustain. Forget about growing if you don't
Hmm.
know the whole process actually, and that's where I think some of the engineers are failing. I mean, and they keep on asking the question that what am I doing wrong actually?
Yeah.
So
So coming back to your question, right? Like what the DevOps team needs to be able to do is articulate
yeah.
what is it that they are interested in knowing
Mhm.
from the system design exercise.
Mhm.
So you probably you are not so bothered about the business outcome. Maybe
Yeah.
the product manager or a business leader is driving that. But
Mhm.
there are certain things that you are looking for. Are there new languages, libraries, or frameworks getting introduced?
Yeah.
Is there a new level of scale? Is a new traffic pattern that is getting introduced? Are you capturing new types of data? And does it have a different data handling requirement? Right.
Mhm.
So there are
Exactly.
multiple areas that a DevOps team looks at a
Mhm.
system design to see the implications it has on infrastructure, cost, governance, and so
Mhm.
on. One thing is, as a DevOps team, you should be able to very clearly articulate that
Mhm.
if there are changes in these aspects,
Mhm.
then loop us in, let us know. Now you
Yeah.
can make it a very formal process or make
Mhm.
it informal. When I
Mhm.
know that there is a problem in this area,
Mhm.
I'll just call you over, right?
Exactly.
So it can that flexibility is there, but then you should be able to articulate, hey, what is it that you're interested in, so that the
Mhm.
other team also then knows when to loop you.
And
And one
one
last
thing.
thing on this topic is
Mhm.
that the way the DevOps team has to think about it is even if let us say if the new feature is going to cost more than $100,000,
Mhm.
it has a budgetary implication, so you have to give us advance notice.
Yeah, that
Let's
process.
take an example. Let's say you
Mhm.
define this as a process.
Mhm.
It sounds like a decent process. $100,000 sounds like a big enough number for most companies.
Yeah, exactly.
And then at that point, you can say, okay, I want to get involved and see how to
Mhm.
adjust my budget, get finance approvals and all. But
Mhm.
then a truly long-term scalable way is make each team own their own budget
Thinking basically the I mean the big picture.
and give them governance tools and everything to manage their own budget so that they don't have to come to you every time there's a 100K increase. So but
Exactly.
then it's a journey. You won't get there on day one.
Yes,
But
yes.
yeah.
So basically, coming on to the, I mean that question, basically, which you said, I mean, when you involve a DevOps guy since day zero, I mean,
Hmm.
because I mean the process takes longer time because uh, a DevOps guy mostly if he's not trained in that way, basically, so he thinks from the DevOps perspective only. How am I
Hmm.
gonna deploy it? How am I gonna manage it?
That I'm
Observability.
not so worried with. I think, see, humans are very adaptable, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
exactly.
so you put a DevOps engineer in enough of application design reviews,
Hmm.
he or she will also learn to do application design, and like it's a matter of time. But
Okay.
my bigger concern is that organizations have small DevOps teams,
Hmm.
and their bandwidth need to be very carefully used.
Hmm.
Otherwise, there are more important things that the DevOps team needs to do at that
Hmm.
point of time. that they will not be doing, and
Hmm.
instead they'll be going and sitting part of every design review where they may or may not add
Hmm.
the like the amount of value add that is needed.
I think that the process shift will take some time because that person who has been doing ops more, now if
Mm.
he's part of that process, he will take some time to learn and adapt and then contribute. So the leaders has to be really patient about the whole process. Is that so?
I mean that's for a fact too. I think I think it's more than I won't put it that the problem is the time required for that person to learn.
Hmm.
Then the question is if someone needs to come and contribute in a certain way,
Hmm.
what can the team and organization do to help that ramp up be minimum as possible?
Okay.
Like, how can you help that person learn? Do you
Okay.
have good enough documentation? Can you assign a buddy or a mentor? Right?
Hmm.
So it's not the problem of the individual to, learn something that is unlearnable. It's the problem is how do you make that system easier to understand, that a new
Okay.
person can come in and start contributing by the second or third meeting and not have to wait for a 3 month learning plan to complete.
I've heard this thing a lot from the top recruiter that uh, really good DevOps are the rarest breed. If I say, I mean, amongst the engineering, I mean, all domains, because uh, for, because finding a very good DevOps engineer, because there are hundreds of tools and technologies in DevOps nowadays,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
a single person might not be aware. But if they are ready to adapt and learn and then perform, that's what I think the people look for in most of the
So
companies.
I've been lucky that both here at Big Basket, the kind of DevOps team leaders I work with, and even in some of my previous organizations, I've had the opportunity to work with really great, DevOps teams and individuals. And I think
Mhm.
the key thing over there is not try to be experts in a particular tool, like,
Mhm.
but be expert at understanding what happens underneath, like what is the core fundamental that is getting automated or optimized, and
Exactly.
tools keep changing, so developing your core systems knowledge and expertise, I think that is at the heart
If
of
if you
DevOps.
know, I mean, if you need to go to point A to point B, I mean, it doesn't matter which route you are taking. I mean, as long as you know how you are gonna reach there, I mean, that's all matters basically.
Sort of, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.